Hi, in this video for the setting up Centrify evaluation, I'll be going over the initial install and configuration for the identity and privilege section or features of the Centrify Infrastructure Services product. Formerly called the Centrify Service Suite, and now it's called Centrify Infrastructure Services, and we'll be going over just identity and privilege. We're not doing auditing in this video. That'll be another video. I'm assuming you already follow the other videos for doing the back-end setup. We have a Centrify OU with the OUs underneath that we need it. We've got everything set up that way. So if you haven't already set that up, please refer to the other video of setting up the back-end and the permissions inside of AD that we need. So what we're doing in this video is I'm setting up infrastructure services for someone following along for an eval. So we're doing the identity and privilege. So we're going to install the software. We're going to configure and set up Centrify Zones. I'm going to do a Windows zone, a Linux zone, and a Mac, and configure a test user. Have one test user ready to install, to configure so that person can log into all your test agents. So that's it. Let's go into the software. So first thing we'll do is we're going to download the software. I already have it ready. You should have it ready as well. And then we're going to install it. Just a note, again, you should already have inside of ADUC, you should have a Centrify OU made with, I have 3 OUs underneath it, and audit and licenses and zones. Our licenses are going under there, under licenses, and pretty much everything else is going under zones. So we're going to get the software. If you haven't downloaded the software already from the Centrify support portal, go to Download Center. This is what it looks like as of May in 2018, the latest version. Scroll down, Centrify Infrastructure Services 2018. This is the main bundle we need that has everything except the actual Mac and Unix agents. Everything else is in this big package. Download the zip probably. If you're working on virtual machines inside of something and it's harder to get a zip somewhere, sometimes an ISO is handy. This is just for Mac eval only customers. You just need a special Windows package that only has the stuff you need for Mac. Probably won't need that. It's, again, all contained within this main package. Also, the window agent is in that main package, but if you just want to download the window agent itself, you can just download this zip. Here's the all agents, which I downloaded, all of them, all the Mac agent, the Mac and Linux agents, all of them in one big zip file. If all you need is Red Hat or something, you can go down to here and get the individual. Here's the individual Mac, here's the individual Red Hat. A lot of people are downloading. All right, so I downloaded all that already. In my software, I'm ready to go. I have some license keys ready. You won't be able to finish everything without a license key. You need an evaluation license or a permanent license. So I have my management. This is what happened when I unzipped that big Windows folder, or Windows file. I got a folder now. If I go under there, another directory, we have an auto run. So if we click on auto run, what we want to install is identity and privilege. Another video will do the auditing and monitoring. And again, this big package has the agent for Windows, but if you're just going to install just that, you don't need this whole big package. You could download the smaller one. You need a license service somewhere. We're going to go ahead and install it here. All you need is one. Identity and privilege, when you click on this, we're going to click on that right now. And then one thing we'll notice is a prerequisite. So a couple features needs this compact Microsoft SQL compact database. The deployment manager, which pushes out packages using SSH and credentials, and we can push out packages, update Centrify agents on Unix machines, and also when you import a sudoers file. We're going to put that in a temporary database while you massage it, and then when you are done, everything else in Centrify is stored in Active Directory, but we need this temporary database for these things. You don't need this everywhere, so this is optional. You're going to want it in one place. You might not use the deployment manager, but it's not bad to have in one place. And the sudo imports can become really handy as well, but maybe not every administrator needs that. So if I say yes, this is going to go ahead and install it for us. And we want to install it for this eval. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say no, though, because I want to install this manually myself. Every now and then, installing the SQL Server Compact, sometimes it sticks for a couple minutes and you can't tell what's going on. So I'm going to hit cancel and X out of this just to do it manually. So if you go under where the Centrify was, or the auto run, if you go under common, you can see it right here, the compact. We include it. This is where we were going to install it. I'm on a 64-bit. If I go to run the 64-bit install, it says, please run the regular standard, the regular version first, the 86. So we're going to install it. And again, I just like to do this manually so I can see the green progress arrow. Because every now and then I've seen this get stuck, maybe just in virtual machines, but I want to see that, see where the, if if it was stuck, it was on what component. So when it finishes, hit finish, and now we can do the 64-bit above it. Again, you didn't have to do this manually. In my VM or some VMs every now and then, it takes a while. I like to see it where the holdup is. So now I'm going to go back into the Centrify and go back into auto run. I'm going to click on identity and privilege, and notice, you know, the prerequisites are already there, so they don't show up. So we're going to hit next, agree, put in your name and your company name. Notice I hit next twice, so don't be impatient like me. So at this juncture, we're going to choose what we install. I'm okay with everything there. We're going to install all these components. The ADUCT extension, so some Centrify data shows up in ADUCT only on this machine. Group policy extension, same thing, only on this machine. We want the PowerShell. Utilities, we're going to do that deployment manager. We never need this password synchronization extension. That's not needed. Go ahead and do the zone provisioning agent. We don't have to configure it, but we want that installed. And then the PuTTY is good. We want the license service. Again, that needs to be in somewhere in your domain. You need at least one licensing service installed. We're going to do it here. I'm going to unclick reporting services. That uses Microsoft SQL database. It's basically going to suck up the Centrify data from AD into a SQL database. I like to put that on a different machine, and that's a little more advanced setup. We're going to do that in a different video. So unclick report services, and pretty much everything else except for the synchronization. And that's it, right? Yeah, everything except for password synchronization and report services. Hit next. Next. Yes. It should be pretty quick. So we do not need to do this at all. So we're going to unclick that. We can do that later. Doesn't matter. I just wanted this installed. We don't need to configure that. So unclick it, hit finish. That's fine. It's just warning us. We're saying OK. So we're done. But we're going to do some more setup. As soon as we launch this Access Manager, we're going to go through an install wizard. So we can exit out. Now, I know you're going to need license keys. So I'm going to get my license key ready and put it in my buffer. So I have my license key ready, and then I'm going to click on Access Manager. This was a shortcut I made to Access Manager. This is the GUI, and the first time you launch it, we're going to go through a wizard. So this is what domain controller. It should find your closest one. You could pick a specific domain controller if you wanted to. Or, just let it choose the one it found. Now we're going through the wizard. I'm logging in as myself, that's fine. We don't need to deploy this. This is if you haven't done what we've already done. We've already made a Centrify OU, and we have our license container, audit, and zones ready to go. We're not going to do that. Now, where we put license container, it's trying to put it in program data. We don't want it there. This is just a default. We can put licenses anywhere we want, but I want my default license container to be there. Well, we already made it. So I hit browse, and I browse to where I want to put it. So it changed it. Next. It's going to grant that container everyone right to read, which is fine. You can always go back and change that. That's fine. AD is read, world readable by default. So here's a license key. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the license key in there. Hit add. Now we could have done this in the licensing service panel, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're just going to do it in here because the wizard does it for us. And next, default zone container. Again, we're going to some place in program data. We'll go ahead and make it. If you didn't have anything ready, that's where things will get put. I'm going to browse and put it where I want it to be. Centrify Zones. Again, we can make anything anywhere we want. This is just our default zone. Grant computer accounts in the computer's container permission update. I don't have that permission to do that, maybe. And either way, I don't care. I'm not putting computers in the computer's account. I'm going to put them somewhere else. So you can unclick that. Try this if you have the rights. we're registering what we're doing here, so it makes it easier to keep the integrity of the data. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. I have the rights to do that. This is the ADUCT extensions. Add them in there if you should have the right to do that locally. If not, it's okay. And then that's it. Hit next. And now it said license has been added and ready to go. All right. So I hit finish. It launched up here. This is the Centrify GUI. It's an MMC snap-in. I'm on this machine, and a lot of people might call this a Centrify server in their little lingo, but it's really just a GUI. This GUI can be on anyone's desktop. This isn't a server. This is like ADUCT or group policy. I'm really storing this data in the domain controller inside of AD. So I go ahead and get this a little wider and get it all ready for me. So what we did was we added that license key in there, so it let us get in here, and we're allowed to run this tool. Just to show you something real quick, if you do a search for Centrify licensing control panel, you got to have one of these running. We installed it, and this actually will show you. It's a good. You can make a report and go out and show you what your current deployment's like. We have nothing in there right now. It's fine. So, but across here, my current auditing report, I'm gonna go straight to DC licenses, and it should already be in here. See, it found the license container. I could add a new container. I could have a whole bunch in my environment. New container I can add, or I can add new keys. I can remove, I can add. But that wizard did it for us, but this is where we can do it manually later on. If you ever need to add a new license key in here. I went to Licensing Service Control Panel, and you just hit add, and you add in a new key. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to create data. We're going to plug in data into Active Directory. I'm going to use a Centrify GUI. So I'm going to right-click here and create new zone. Now the reason I can do this is because I have rights to this OU. Again, if I didn't mention this in the beginning, I'm logged into the domain. Okay, I'm logged into the domain. I am a local user who has the right to install software, obviously. But I own this OU. They gave me either I'm a domain admin or they gave me this Centrify OU. I have full rights in here. I'm going to start writing data. I have rights to create data in there. So when I make a new zone, I'm going to start creating data inside of here. And actually, if we go back here and do refresh, you'll see Centrify's already put some data in here because that's our default zone. So I'm going to go back in here and we're going to make some new zones. All right. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to say create new zone. So that's with a right click. I right clicked on that word zones and I say create new zone. Notice the container where it's putting us. That's okay. I'm going to call it global. So with Centrify, zones are hierarchical in nature. We're going to make policy. So a zone is just a common set of users and computers that have the same policy. So these users can log into computers in this zone. They're hierarchical in nature. I always start with a global zone and a couple children zones. So I'm calling my top level global. The default here, I could browse and put it anywhere I want. But our default is where I already said. So that I'm good with that. I could put a description if I wanted to, and we want the default zone type. Hit next, finish. So now I got a global zone. Every zone is the same with computers, Unix data, and authorization. Computers is the computers that join that zone. Unix data is a bunch of other stuff. Users and groups, we're going to specifically talk about users here. This is the Unix profile information. Your UID, your GID, your home directory, your shell, things like that. And authorization is where we do rights and roles, and then role assignments. Rights, the right to log in, the right to do, in Windows, the right to run applications. On Unix, the right to do elevated commands as well. And then put them together into roles, with some default roles out of the box. The Windows login role, the Unix login role, we're going to use that login role right there. So this is my global zone. I like to define my roles globally, but they already, Centrify gives us the default role, the Unix logon role. It has this logon all right, so I can assign this role to people and they can log on to Unix machine. I assign this Windows role to people and they can log on to Windows machines. So we already have that defined. So I'm going to make some children zones. So what I'm going to do is right click on global and create child zone. Children inherit from their parents. I'm going to make a Linux zone. If I go back, I'm not adding, again, it looks the same as before. Hitting next, finish. And notice now there's a child zone. I can expand on the left side, Linux. Now notice every zone looks the same. So even though this is a child zone, I still have computers, Unix data, and authorization. Because this could be different fiefdoms. In their world, they might not know about the global. People that log in could be Centrify administrators just of the zone and not see the global zone at all and not even know of its existence. So these are all, they could be a child zone in every sense of the word or their own little fiefdom, and the global zone is really just blank. So I'm going to make two more child zones for a total of 3. So I'm going to go back to child zone, right click and say create child zone. I'm going to make a Windows, hit next, finish. Right click on child zone, create child zone. I'm going to make a Mac child zone. Finish. So what we're going to do next is talk about user data, the user information. So inside of Unix data, this is where we set users' profiles. So on a Unix machine, we're going to allow AD users to log in. They're not going to be an Etsy password, Etsy shadow, which Etsy password traditionally is where you're getting the UIDs. So a Centrify agent's going to be on there with a policy, and part of that policy, we got to say, hey, when Bob logs in, when Dave logs in, when Diana Worth logs in, who's me, by the way, I'm logged in as this person Diana Worth, and I'm going to add myself as the test user. When they log in, what is their UID? What is their GID? You need to build that. All right, so, and it's going to be, we're going to build it globally, and all my children's zone inherit. So I don't have to define this Unix profile for Diana everywhere. I can define it once. I can do exceptions, so later on, I can make an exception. I want it to be the same as the global, but I want to change the home directory just in one computer in the Linux zone, or maybe globally she has one UID, but one special child zone, I'm going to give her a different UID because that child zone is from Solaris machines from 10 years ago or something. So what we're first going to do is we need to make a make a Unix profile for Diana Worth, our test user. So at the global zone, under Unix data for users, right-click and say Add User to Zone. I can do it on the user section or the white space. Right-click and say Add User to Zone. So notice where I'm looking. I can do a D Worth. That's my test user. That's me in my environment. I'm logged in as Diana Worth, who's my main admin. This just has a warning. She's an enterprise admin. So I'm going to make this profile, and there's going to be a UID assigned to this user. So if I'm logging onto a home directory that already exists, I can't just make up a new UID. This is important for Unix people. If this person doesn't exist, if this home directory is going to be new, Centrify agent will make a new home directory upon first log on. I can make this UID anything I want. So I can make it match something that already exists. There's other ways we can bulk load in all kinds of UIDs with Etsy password files, PowerShell scripts, that kind of thing. I can have Centrify generate it. That's the default. That's the easiest way. We're taking the SID and we're generating a long UID that's unique. There's also ways, I have a lot of clients that are starting to use things inside of AD as well. You can also do Apple UID schema. In the Mac zone, some people do that because the old Mac agent they were using, they had their own algorithm, and there's already a home directory, so we want to match that algorithm. So we can do Centrify, but there's also other options here too. Let me just show you something for Diana Worth. Notice I only have 2. If I cancel out of this and go into Diana Worth, this is an option that a lot of people are doing in production more and more. And there's a UID number inside of AD. So if you go to the user and go to their attribute editor, go to the UID number, more and more I've seen customers set this. So if I set this value, if you have that value set for users, when we're inside of Centrify, as one thing, when I'm adding that Diana Worth, notice now I can do the RFC 2307 attribute. So that might be important in your environment if you need to pull something that already exists. My environment, I'm just going to let the Centrify generate it from the SID. That's the easiest way, and I'm going to hit OK. So she has a profile. Now, she needs the right to log on. When I join these Centrify, take the Centrify agent and join these Unix computers to AD and do the AD bridging, they're going to join a zone, but you have to be explicitly given permission. It's kind of like a firewall, deny unless explicitly allow. So computers that could join the Linux zone, by default, no one can log in, none of the AD users. We don't stop local users from logging on. So local users can still log in until you remove them. But we're going to allow AD users to log on. We have to give that permission. So we talked about before, there's already a role defined globally. Out of the box is a Unix logon role. login role. So I'm going to give that role, but I'm going to assign it at the child zone level. I could assign it up here at the global zone, but that's too much. 6 months from now, I might make a new child zone that I don't want that person to be able to log on. If you assign it at the global level, they can log into every children's zone. That might be too much. So I've defined it globally. Children are going to inherit from their parents, kind of like global variables and local variables if you've ever done programming. So I'm going to go down to Linux child zone, and I'm going to assign that role. So what I do is I right-click on either role assignments or right-click in the white space and assign role. To make this a little bigger, you can look at the roles here and look at the zone. If I scroll down, there's a Unix logon role. There's one inside of global and one inside of Linux. I'm going to do all mine from global. So pick the one from global, Unix logon, hit OK. Now we get to add an AD account. It's at user level. We could add an AD group, and that's better for production. A group of users called Unix logon users or Unix level 1 users, things like that. Right now we're just doing a test user, so I don't have an AD group made yet. So I'm just going to add my test user in here. So now I have a role assignment inside the zone with a test user, and that same test user has a Unix profile. Those are the two things you need to log on. Diana Worth is good to go for Linux zone. And the way I can check that is look at the policy. You do that by looking at the zone itself. So go to the child zone Linux, right-click, and say Show Effective Unix User Rights. This is basically the current policy, and there's Diana Worth right there. You see the zone profile, role assignments, and then PAM access, log on all. She's all good to go. Now I want to do that for the other zones as well. If I were to right-click on Mac and say Show Effective Unix User Rights, we consider Mac a Unix machine. So that, no one's in there. Because Diana Worth has a profile. I don't have to put a profile here. I don't have to put a profile on the Linux zone because it inherited from the global. So for my Mac, Diana Worth has a profile. She just hasn't been given access. You got to have both. So I got to authorize her and give her a role. So I'm going to go to Role Assignments from the Mac zone, right-click, Assign Role. Again, I'm going to go down and find the Unix login role from Global. Click OK. Click Add AD Account. Stay on User. Find my test user. Click OK. There you go. So now, if I right-click on the Mac child zone, Diana Worth can log on. Now, obviously you don't need a Unix profile to log on a Windows machine, but you still have to give the right to log on, give them a role. So we have a Windows logon role. So I'm going to go to Authorization. Under the Windows child zone, go to Role Assignments, under Authorization, right-click, Assign Role, and I'm going to scroll down and find the Windows logon role. Right there, do the one from Global, click OK, hit AD account, put in my Diana Worth. Click Find Now. Right. So if I right-click on Windows and say Show Effective Windows User Rights, there's Diana Worth and she can log on. Now, again, when you join a computer to AD, it's like a firewall, deny unless explicitly allowed. So Windows, obviously by default, already joined to AD, but if you as soon as you put that Centrify agent and join it to a zone, nobody can log in unless you explicitly let them, even domain admins. So let's make sure we explicitly do that. So for the entire Windows child zone, I like to add domain admins can log on. So it might be too much. You can always remove this later, but that's not a bad thing. Domain admins will always go log on. So I'm going to go into here and make a new role assignment and go to Windows login role from the global. Hit AD account, change this to group, and then type in domain. I want to add my domain admins. So now I have that. That's just a backup plan. I right-click on Windows and say Show Effective Windows User Rights. Now administrators can log on. I get a DBA who's part of the administrator group. Of course, Diana Worth has it twice, but that's okay. So I'm pretty much set up here. Let me look at my notes, what I wanted to show you. So we got everything set up. Diana Worth is ready to go. So I should all be all set to go. I have my test user, whatever your test user, all ready to go for all child zones. So when I join the computer to AD and join into the zones for Linux and Mac, and when I take that Windows agent and join it to the Windows zone, my test user, Diana Worth, can log into all these, and actually all domain users should be able to log on the Windows zone on that test machine as well. So that's all we want to do in this video. Thank you very much.